In 1956, America had more than 100,000 lunch counters. They sat inside drugstores, department stores, bus terminals, train stations, and five-and-dime stores. You could walk in with a quarter, sit on a spinning stool, and eat a hot meal while the woman behind the counter called you Han. Most of those lunch counters are gone now. The burgers survived. The milkshakes survived. But dozens of sandwiches that once defined the American lunch hour vanished almost completely. These weren't fancy recipes. They were working-class meals built for speed, comfort, and affordability. Today, we're counting down 8 forgotten lunch counter sandwiches from the 1950s that disappeared forever. And number 1 was once so common that millions of Americans ate it every week. Let's begin. Number 8. The olive nut sandwich. At first glance, this sounds like a sandwich invented by someone cleaning out a refrigerator. Cream cheese, chopped green olives, crushed pecans, spread between slices of soft white bread. Yet this combination appeared everywhere during the 1950s. Women's clubs served it at meetings. Department store tea rooms sold thousands of them. Church gatherings couldn't seem to function without a tray of olive nut sandwiches cut neatly into triangles. The salty olives balanced the creamy cheese. The pecans added texture and a subtle sweetness. It wasn't a sandwich built for hungry factory workers. It was a sandwich designed for conversation. When lunch counters and tea rooms disappeared, the olive nut sandwich disappeared with them. Today, most Americans have never even heard of it. Number 7. The sardine sandwich. Few sandwiches have fallen farther from popularity. In the 1950s, sardine sandwiches were common in port cities and industrial towns throughout the Northeast. The recipe was simple. A few sardines from a tin, butter on rye bread, thin slices of onion, a squeeze of lemon. That was it. The fish provided cheap protein. The rye added heartiness. And the onion gave every bite a sharp kick. Workers loved them because they were filling, nutritious, and affordable. The smell wasn't exactly subtle, but nobody cared. Lunch counters in Boston, Baltimore, and Philadelphia sold countless sardine sandwiches every day. Today, sardines are healthier than ever. The sandwich simply fell out of fashion. Number 6. The Western sandwich. Long before breakfast sandwiches became fast food staples, there was the Western sandwich, sometimes called a Denver sandwich. It featured a thin omelet filled with diced ham, onions, and green peppers. The omelet was folded and placed between 2 slices of buttered toast. Simple, fast, perfect. Short-order cooks could make one in less than 2 minutes. Truck drivers ordered them, office workers ordered them, construction crews ordered them. The combination of eggs, vegetables, and ham created a meal that felt substantial without being expensive. For decades, it was one of the most recognizable sandwiches in America. Today, most younger Americans would struggle to identify one. Number 5. The deviled ham sandwich. If you grew up in the 1950s, you probably recognized the little red can with the devil logo. Deviled ham was everywhere. The meat spread combined ground ham with mustard, spices, and seasonings to create something intensely savory and surprisingly addictive. Lunch counters loved it because it required almost no preparation. Open the can, spread it on bread, add lettuce, serve. A deviled ham sandwich was portable, inexpensive, and satisfying. Teachers packed them. Secretaries packed them. Children carried them to school. But as fast food chains expanded and fresh deli meats became more available, canned sandwich spreads began to disappear. The deviled ham sandwich slowly followed. Today it survives mostly as a memory. Number 4. The chopped liver sandwich. Few sandwiches represented old-world immigrant traditions better than chopped liver. Jewish delis throughout New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia treated it as a point of pride. Chicken livers were sautéed with onions and blended with hard-boiled eggs until they formed a rich, savory spread. The mixture was piled onto rye bread and served with mustard. The flavor was deep, earthy, complex. Nothing else tasted quite like it. For many immigrant families, chopped liver wasn't simply food, it was heritage. It connected one generation to the next. As neighborhood delis declined and Americans moved away from organ meats, chopped liver gradually vanished from mainstream menus. Today, it's difficult to find outside a handful of traditional delis. Number 3. The grilled peanut butter and jelly. Most people know peanut butter and jelly. Very few know its forgotten cousin, the grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Drugstore lunch counters served these throughout the 1940s and 1950s. The process was surprisingly simple. Peanut butter and jelly were spread on white bread. The sandwich was buttered, then grilled on a flat-top griddle. The heat transformed everything. The peanut butter became smooth and molten. The jelly turned warm and syrupy. The bread crisped into golden perfection. Children loved it. Adults secretly loved it too. It cost almost nothing to make and tasted far richer than a regular PB&J, yet somehow it disappeared. The cold version survived. The better version didn't. Number 2. The patty melt-some sandwiches deserve their legendary status. The patty melt is one of them. A thin beef patty, Swiss cheese, caramelized onions, rye bread. Everything grilled together until the bread became crisp and golden. The result wasn't quite a hamburger. It wasn't quite a grilled cheese. It was something better. Lunch counter regulars adored patty melts because they delivered everything people loved about burgers while adding layers of flavor that hamburger buns simply couldn't provide. The rye bread contributed a subtle tang. The onions added sweetness. The Swiss cheese brought richness and depth. Many cooks considered it the ultimate lunch counter sandwich. While a few diners still serve patty melts today, the authentic lunch counter version has become increasingly rare. The cooks who perfected them are mostly gone. The counters where they were made have largely disappeared. And with them went one of America's greatest sandwiches. Before we reveal number 1, it's worth remembering what made lunch counters special. They weren't just places to eat, they were community centers. A mechanic might sit next to a banker. A salesman might sit next to a school teacher. Everyone ordered from the same menu. Everyone drank the same coffee. Everyone became a regular. Fast food eventually replaced much of that experience. It offered speed, consistency, convenience, but something else was lost along the way. And no sandwich represents that loss more than our number 1 pick. Number 1, the hot roast beef sandwich for millions of Americans. This was lunch. Not occasionally, not as a special treat, every week, sometimes several times a week. The hot roast beef sandwich began with 2 slices of white bread placed open-faced on a plate. Thin slices of roast beef were layered on top. Then everything was smothered in rich brown gravy. Mashed potatoes usually accompanied it, sometimes green peas, sometimes carrots, but always gravy. Lots of gravy. This wasn't finger food. You needed a knife and fork. The bread soaked up the gravy until it became soft and flavorful. The roast beef absorbed every drop. The potatoes turned the entire meal into pure comfort. What made the sandwich special wasn't luxury. It was economy. Lunch counters used leftover roast beef from previous meals. The gravy came from collected drippings and stock. Nothing went to waste. A single roast could feed customers for days. Workers loved it because it was filling, affordable, and deeply satisfying. You could eat one at noon and stay full until dinner. By the 1980s, however, lunch counters were disappearing across America. Fast food restaurants didn't serve hot roast beef sandwiches covered in gravy. Drive-thrus couldn't accommodate meals that required a knife and fork. The economics changed, the culture changed, and one of America's defining lunches faded away. Today, many people under 40 have never ordered a true hot roast beef sandwich from a lunch counter. Not because it wasn't good, but because the places that made it disappeared first, and that's the real story behind these forgotten sandwiches. The recipes weren't necessarily lost. Most can still be recreated at home. What vanished was the world around them. The spinning stools, the chrome counters, the unlimited coffee refills, the familiar faces, the feeling of walking into a place where everyone knew your name and your usual order. These sandwiches were built for a different America, a slower America, an America that sat down for lunch. Maybe that's why they still fascinate us. They're not just sandwiches, they're reminders of a time when a simple meal could be the center of a community. So here's a challenge. Pick one of these forgotten sandwiches and make it this week. Maybe the patty melt. Maybe the grilled peanut butter and jelly. Maybe even the sardine sandwich if you're feeling adventurous. Then sit down, eat slowly, and imagine the lunch counter where it might have been served 70 years ago. You may discover that what disappeared wasn't just the food. It was an entire way